Hello, Joe from Joe K Models here. I just finished painting the Hornet here, and as you can see I've done the gray and I've done the camouflage pattern as well. I also did a wash, just a normal wash with Tamiya black panel line. But what I want to do is I want to add some saltwater streaking as well as some rust, because if you look at the picture you can see there's some rust on there, and also because it's been in the ocean you're going to see some streaks as well of salt. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to do this with a couple of different things. First of all, I have a flat brush and I have a thin brush. I bought just regular cheap enamel testers, flat white as well as a rust color. And you can also buy more expensive products from AK, but I'm just using these for this to see if I can create a decent effect with it. And then you also need some type of a spirit enamel thinner, so I'm using this testers as well. So let's get started here. So the first thing that I'm going to do here, and by the way this whole model's been gloss coated, is I want to get some white color on the model to go ahead and start the salt effect. Now you're going to notice the salt mostly around the camouflage where it's a darker color, and that's pretty much going to be what I'm going to do. So it's going to be like from here down to here. And so what I like to do for this is I like to take my thinner brush, and then I'm just going to go ahead and make some small little dots, and they can be a little bit different in size. And you want it to kind of be random. And just add those like that. You want to do this throughout the whole ship, obviously. Once you have the whole model covered with these white dots, what I do is I take this flat brush and I pour a little bit of enamel thinner in a container, and I just barely, like here's the container, this is how much I'm touching it, barely anything at all. And then after I do that, I also wipe it in a paper towel. So it's almost like dry brushing in a way. So you want pretty much barely anything on there when you start doing this. And once it's somewhat dry, once it's dry, you go ahead and you just activate it by pressing onto it. And just very, very lightly pulling down. You can also move the brush parallel to create more of a streaking effect. And you'll see it starts to come loose. So what I like to do with this flat brush is just pull it down like this. And this just gives the impression that there's salt that's just been running down the side, going back down into the ocean. You want to be very patient with this. It takes a minute for the thinner to start activating it, but you'll know it's activated. You'll start seeing the paint get pulled down. And if you're not happy with something, you can always just pull it right off. That's the cool thing about this, is you can't really mess up that much. You can always pull it off with the thinner. The trick is to find that happy medium where you're pulling enough off to where you're leaving an effect, but you're not pulling it all off. And then when you're done, you just kind of look at the whole thing and you just kind of compare it and see if you got the effect that you wanted. So you can kind of see if it's too dark or it doesn't look natural, I just kind of pull it down even more. And I just want this to be very subtle. I don't want stark contrast of this salt streaking effect because it doesn't look natural. You want to think about how the actual elements come into play and how it actually makes it look on the ship. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this, and I think you get the idea, and we'll take a look once we're done here. Alright, so I've went ahead and I've finished my saltwater weathering across the whole ship. Hopefully this comes out on camera okay. But I've done the whole thing, and what I want to do now is I want to add the rust. But before I can do that, one of the most important things that I need to do is I need to seal my work, because if I add the rust and I start doing the same thing with the enamel thinner, I'm going to pull the rust and all the work that I did on the saltwater effect at the same time. So this is what I like to use. I buy this at my local supermarket store, and this stuff is really good because it dries in a matter of minutes and I can keep working. I don't have to wait overnight or anything. But it is pretty powerful stuff, so definitely wear a mask if you're using this, as well as a well-ventilated area. So I'm just going to quickly go over this so I can continue working. Okay, so now I'm ready to add my rust effect to the ship as well. And this is pretty much the same concept, but a little bit different of a technique. You can do this, well, I do this one of two ways. So I take my rust color here, and you can take a fine paintbrush, and you can just do a small, depending on the scale of the model, you can just leave a mark like that and be fine with it. But I would also like to add in some parts where maybe it's not just a straight up and down rust effect, but maybe it's more of a flat pattern. You just basically put more of this on it, and you can stick to the water line because it's going to happen there a lot. So I'm just kind of adding some different strokes there. And where water is going to be running down, you just want to be random with it. You don't want to be too predictable. You want them to be different lengths, and you want to just keep on like that throughout the whole ship. And also, I highly recommend that you have some type of a reference. So if you're doing a certain subject, like I'm doing the Hornet right before the Doolittle attack, and there's a picture on the Tamiya box, and what's nice about that is it kind of shows the weathering as I was showing, so I have something to reference. But you can always go on the internet and find different reference materials also if you're trying to get as realistic as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing this, and I'll come back once I'm ready to start adding the enamel thinner to it. Okay, so I have the whole ship done with this rust color here, and there are some different ways that you can go about doing this. Depending on the scale of the model and what you're trying to achieve, you could be fine with just having a fine line with a paintbrush here and calling it a day. You can also do something similar to what I was doing with the salt water effect and just pulling the color down to make it more of an area that has some rust going on. Or another thing that you can do is you can kind of pull down different parts of it. So if you activate this here with your paintbrush, it is possible to kind of pull this down. You can do something like that. For this model and with my reference and what I'm trying to do, I kind of want to pull most of it down in more of an area type of situation. So I'm just going to use my flat brush, and I'm going to start off here. The anchor is another spot where this tends to happen quite a bit. Remember, you don't want barely any spirit on here or enamel thinner. You just kind of want to blur it a little bit. Just like the real thing. You can also use the side of the flat brush to kind of achieve the same thing. Or like I was saying, like this area down here, I want to kind of make this a whole area where this is happening. And just be patient because it will take. You just want to take your time. The rust color is a lot stronger than the salt water, the white color. So if you're new to doing this, I would maybe not put very much on it first and just kind of test it out and see how it goes. And if you want to weather it heavier, you can always add more once you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep working on this with the techniques that I just discussed, and we'll see what happens, what it looks like when it's done. Alright, so I went ahead and finished all of that, and I went ahead and sealed everything. Here is the picture, my reference, and here is what I came out with. So I tried to go for this effect where you're seeing an area here, and then of course by the anchor, you got that as well. So all in all, it's not too hard of a technique. Like I was showing you, I didn't use that much to do this, and I'm pretty happy with the effect at this scale. So I hope that helps some of you out, and until next time, this is Joe.